Willow stays out of my shots typically, most of the time, but lately she's loved the camera. The goal today is to make enough shrimp étouffée for dinner tonight, but also some to freeze to pull out whenever I need a quick and easy meal. But the first order of business is going to be to peel a whole lot of shrimp. This is 2 pounds of medium shrimp. They're quite large, which is not typically what you would use for shrimp étouffée. I feel like this is more of a small to medium sized shrimp situation, but this was the smallest that Cinderella had. And the reason I went to Cinderella, if you don't know Cinderella, is this really, really nice like gourmet grocery store and fish market in New York, but they carry Louisiana catfish. They ship in Louisiana catfish from Louisiana, so I was like, okay, perfect. So I went in yesterday and I asked, like, is catfish something you always have? Is it something that goes really quickly? And they're like, no, yeah, we typically have it, should be good. They did not have it today. And I did see it in the case yesterday, they do carry it, but I guess it was just really popular today, no fault of their own. But unfortunately, we were going to make catfish échafaudaille, which is fried or even blackened catfish smothered in shrimp étouffée over rice. Well, usually crawfish étouffée, but you could do shrimp too. And unfortunately, we're just gonna make shrimp étouffée now. I did buy all of the other things to fry the catfish, but that's okay. I might make like hush puppies or something later this week. The first order of business is peeling and veining this shrimp. This is 2 pounds. I bought them with the shell on because I want to use the shells, and we'll get to that later. Pulling up a chair, this is going to be a lengthy process. I like getting to do things like this where you use all parts of an animal, use the shells on the shrimp or the bones of meat, because it's how you get the most flavor, and it's something that can't really be bought by substitutes. I mean, it can, but it's usually expensive and honestly just not as good. So doing something like this is an extra mile. Not something you always need to do, especially if it's like a weeknight, but if you have a weekend and you want to do some fun cooking, I recommend. I'm just going to peel these first and then I'll go through and devein them, which is something I honestly don't really care about. Like, obviously if I'm cooking for other people, I do all of those things, and I will today because you guys are watching, but I don't know if it just comes from like eating crawfish or even like peel and eat shrimp at any kind of seafood place. Like, I can't promise that I like go through all of them. Sorry, unpopular opinion, but today I'll do it because you're watching. We are ready to get cooking. All of the shrimp are peeled and deveined, which I'm glad I did because there was a lot in the veins of these shrimp. And then I also went ahead and just chopped up all of our veggies, which are hanging out in this pot lid. If you know, you know. So the first thing I'm gonna do is get some oil heating up to make a little shrimp stock. So this is why we peel our shrimp in the first place, is we want to use those shells to bring more flavor to the stock. Of course, you could buy a good seafood stock. You could use water, you could use chicken stock, bouillon, lobster base, like literally any of those things would work. But the benefit of this is that we get really nice shrimpy shrimp flavor, and we used everything. And usually buying shrimp unpeeled can be cheaper too, and it's the way I like to cook. I like to cook this way. And then our shrimp shells are just gonna all go in. Oh, I probably could have used a bigger pot for this, but that's okay. When you're making a stock, you often want to simmer your bones or your veggies for quite some time. But I've actually learned recently that's not so true for something like a shrimp stock, because some of those flavors start to break down. They're really delicate. And so going for a shorter amount of time, like 5 or 10 minutes, is better than, or like if you were making a chicken stock or a beef stock for hours and hours. So already you can see how much the color is changing on these shells, how quickly they cook, and it already smells like a really nice shrimp aroma. I'm glad that I did this because it already tastes so much better. Like, obviously I haven't tried it yet, but I just know. I'm gonna throw in some of the green onion greens. I don't think I'll need all of them. You can also take some of our veggies, onions. I think I have some leftover shallots, but I don't feel like digging those out. And then I'm gonna add some leftover herbs. You could just do the shrimp shells, that would be fine. But if you have some extra stuff, you might as well go in with them. Fresh thyme, a little bit of parsley. Whatever you have is perfect. I'm just gonna fill that up. I added water just until the shrimp shells are covered. I'm gonna let that come to a light simmer, and we'll have a nice little shrimp stock to build our étouffée with. When it comes to Louisiana's cuisine, there's a million ways to make every dish. Today I'm showing you just one way, Probably not even the way that I use all of the time. One thing a lot of people do whenever they're making this recipe is they kind of combine the roux and veggie step, which totally fine with that. They'll make the roux, add the veggies to the roux, cook them following, or they'll cook the veggies, add some flour to these oily veggies, and make the roux then. I'm actually going to separate these steps, and here's why. I want the color of roux that I want, that I'm going for, and I want the veggies to be nice and soft. And I think sometimes when you combine those, sometimes you have to pick and choose because you don't want your roux to get too dark, or you don't want your veggies to get too soft, or maybe they don't get soft enough because of the, are you following? Do you know what I mean? Of course, a professional could probably do both of those things at the same time perfectly. Keep it simple. I'm just going to do these steps in separate pots, combine them all once I'm happy with both. Some oil heating up in this pot. We're going to go in with all of the veggies. And I don't want too much color on these, but I'm also not worried about them getting color. I do want them to get really soft. At the end, I want lots of veggies to flavor the étouffée, but I don't want to be like crunching or even noticing a lot of these veggies. Something that's really going to help with that is a lot of salt to draw out all of the water in the veggies. Our shrimp can go in the fridge. We don't need these out. I'm melting about half a cup of butter in my Magnalite on this side. I am unfortunately using my nice French butter because I thought I had more butter, but I apparently don't. So for this roux, I am going to be using butter, obviously, which is traditional French, but not typically what you do when you're making Cajun food. But it is actually pretty common when you're making an étouffée because this is like a nice creamy dish, and why not? At this point, I am going to put my apron on because roux have a tendency to get me. Okay, to this melted butter, I'm going in with equal parts flour, so about half a cup. And now we're just on mixing duty for the next however long it takes. Unlike when you're making a gumbo, we're not looking for a super dark roux here. We're looking for a nice peanut butter roux. And we want this low and slow. There's a huge chance that this could burn if you don't mix it consistently. I will say, it's really big in the Cajun cooking community to be like, you better not stop mixing ever. The second you look away, the second it's gonna burn. And while that is true and can definitely happen, in culinary school, we made our roux a lot quicker, which could be good or bad because you don't want to burn your roux and you want it to be nice and evenly toasted. But if you're watching it and you're stirring it constantly, this process can go a little faster than everyone likes to act. I'm not saying so super fast, but if you really have an eye on it, you might be able to crank the heat a little bit. And this doesn't need to take a full 45 minutes, you know? It can, and it should if you're scared, and that's okay. But I might crank it up a little bit. I have unfortunately realized that my big measuring cup is currently holding some leftovers in the fridge because it's also a leftover container. And so we're gonna have to strain the stock into this container, which is not normal, but it's fine. Happy with where this roux is, so I cut the heat. Now we're gonna add all of these veggies. The veggies got nice and soft. I'm happy with where those are. I did not time that, but I'd say that was about 30-25 minutes. I just realized I never put garlic in. That's wild. I'm gonna put some frozen garlic in. I don't really chop in it. I have lots of opinions on pre-minced garlic. I actually like the frozen a lot though. So we're gonna start with our homemade shrimp stock. Oh, I don't know how much this is. That was probably about half a cup. That was about 2.5 to 3 cups of shrimp stock. If I feel like it needs more, I did grab some chicken stock from Cinderella that I can throw in. At this point, I'm gonna bring it back to a simmer, and we're gonna do some seasoning. But this is gonna definitely need some more liquid. I've added about 3.5 cups of liquid at this point, and then we can add more later, but you already see that it's a little thick. Go ahead and add some more. Going in with my Cajun seasoning, I'm not measuring this. I'd say this is about 2 teaspoons. A little a few dashes of cayenne for heat, and then just a little more garlic powder, probably like half a teaspoon. So I'm gonna go with a pretty large pinch of black pepper, the bay leaf. Whoa! This is massive. This massive bay leaf. A little bit of Tabasco, some Worcestershire. Both of those are gonna add just like a little touch of acidity. At this point, it's at a nice simmer. I'm gonna throw the lid on. I'm gonna let that simmer for about 25-30 minutes while I clean the kitchen. As you can tell by this change of lighting, the sun has set. It is definitely time for dinner. I'm hungry. Let's get the show on the road. I am going to season up the shrimp before they go in. They're gonna be cooked in a well-seasoned stew. I don't know, it kind of just feels wrong just throwing them in without something on them, even if it doesn't really stick. If you're smart, season the shrimp before you put them in the fridge and then they can marinate, obviously. This has been simmering away for about a little under 30 minutes. We're gonna throw in the shrimp. These are not gonna take super long to cook. They are pretty big, so keep that in mind. I'll probably let it cook. I mean, they're already changing color, honestly. I'll probably let it simmer uncovered for about 10 minutes just so all the flavors can really come together. At that point, I'll check how thick it is, see how I feel about that, and then we can eat. I do have an admission. I am going to use some microwave rice, and here's why. Nothing wrong with that, but here's why I'm doing it. I am out of like normal bag of rice, but I had some frozen rice that I needed to eat before I bought more rice. So I'm actually being financially responsible, guys. I really am. I'm gonna let this simmer. I'm gonna let these shrimp really cook through and become one with the sauce. I also want this sauce to thicken up just a little bit, just like the tiniest bit. I'm also gonna throw in the green onions at this point. Seeing these big shrimp and shrimp étouffée does not feel natural. I know people make this with big shrimp, like I'm not the first to do this, but that is just not the shrimp étouffée I grew up eating. The shrimp are fully cooked, the sauce is nice and thick, a little bit of rice. I think we're ready to plate it up. Earlier when I tasted it for seasoning, I was like, man, this is really missing something. Obviously it's the shrimp, I knew that part, but it's crazy how much sweetness the shrimp brings and how much that like kind of defines the dish. I feel like that's the big difference between crawfish étouffée and shrimp étouffée. Like obviously crawfish have their own things that they bring to the table, but shrimp are so naturally sweet that it's just the most delicious little bite. I'm really, really excited about this. I topped it with some green onions and parsley. Every time I make a dish like this, I'm like, it never visually is as stunning as it tastes. Some people are really good at that. I'm not when it comes to like my comfort food, but we're working on it. Okay, first bite. This is great. This is exactly what I needed. And the best part is I have a lot of leftovers, which I'll get through some of them this week, but for the most part, I'm gonna freeze it and have great shrimp étouffée whenever I want. This was a lot of fun. Let me know what you want me to cook next, whether it's some kind of Cajun dish or something completely new, or if you're looking for tips, culinary school questions, literally anything, leave it in the comments below. And I'll see you next time. Look at that, more dishes. It never ends. It never ends.